you essentially become a faster learner to the point where you can be learning during live rolls. Instead of having to go back or study tape and think about it, you can be rolling with them and come up with solutions in the moment or in competition, because it just becomes second nature to you, and you just become so much better a problem solver and so much quicker a problem solver. And I think in life as well, if you're stuck in any situation where you have to get other people to help you, it's a really debilitating feeling and position where if you know that no matter what position in life you're in, I can figure this out. It's really empowering, and you feel so much happier and better about yourself.
Welcome to the Partizan podcast. I'm George. This is Ben. And today we're joined by Australian Jiu-Jitsu legend, actor, director, producer, Kit Dale.
Thank you.
Kit Dale, I'm out of breath. We've just moved this boxing bag. I'm dying here, man.
This bag was so much heavier than I thought.
Oh my God.
It was going to be a good idea. I think I tore both my biceps.
He's out. Kit's out of the CJI trials. And
George is in. Put him in, coach.
Kit, we're in this room, St. Kilda, the legendary St. Kilda Absolute MMA room. I was really curious to ask you, what were those early legendary days when you were here, Craig was here, Lachlan was here, a bunch of other guys? What was that room like? What was the atmosphere? What do you remember about that time?
Well, I tell you, like, it was fun. It was good. Like, it wasn't near as high level as what it is now. Like, coming here now, there's so many more people. There's 15 people that on such a high level now compared to what it was back then when it was just me, Craig, and Lockie. And that kind of happened. Like, I originally ran a gym called Infinity Jiu-Jitsu, and that was in Partizan, which is not far from here. And I ended up giving the keys to Lachlan to take over. And then I went away for 2 years and did some stuff. I think I was traveling for 2 years, teaching seminars and doing more of the acting stuff. And then I come back, and Craig had come over, so he wasn't there originally. And then I came enrolled, and I was like, damn, this kid's really fucking good. So I started getting a lot more motivated, and Lachlan had improved a hell of a lot at that stage. So it was a lot of fun, us three training, and it was good. It kind of remotivated me for my jiu-jitsu. At the time, I was kind of bored and wasn't really that interested in it. But coming back and having those two guys to train with and to push me was a lot of fun.
Is that what sort of made you feel bored? It's just basically just bashing everyone?
Yeah, I think so. It's just at the time, like, back then, I was quite higher than anyone in Australia, I think, higher level than anyone in Australia. So, and I wasn't really traveling that much, and I didn't really care that much about competition. So it was a little bit less motivating and kind of got boring for me. And then going away for a little bit and then coming back and having like Craig and Lachlan like really step it up was like, and then I was like, okay, this is fun. Now I've got like a hard challenge again. And that's kind of how I felt this time when I come back from LA, where LA predominantly I'm training with wrestlers, and there's a lot of Uzbekistani wrestlers, Kazakhstan, Dagestan,
All the stands
coming over, and they're really good. So I get a lot out of the wrestling there, but the jiu-jitsu there is it's a lot lower than the level of jiu-jitsu here. So I don't get as much out of doing the jiu-jitsu, so I'm mainly doing the wrestling because I feel like that's where the people are the strongest and I can learn the most. But coming back here, it's like the opposite now. I'm like back here and there's like all these guys with phenomenal guards, really good jiu-jitsu, even solid wrestling. So it's been a lot more fun, and I've trained more in the last 2 months than I have in probably the last 2 years. So, which has been good. And usually like I don't train that much. Usually back home it's like 2 or 3 sessions a week. Even when I was competing at the World Championships after 2014, whenever I competed, I was like, traveling the world, training once a week and then competing and stuff like that. So it's good to go into a competition feeling I actually have some fitness this time, instead of what I've had to do in the past is go in there and just have to really pace myself and be as smart as I can, because I know that I do not have the gas tank for this and I'm not fit. So I have to rely, solely on very efficient technique.
And in terms of competing, is it just something you're not like sort of excited about? Like, obviously, you're doing the CJI trials now, and by the time this comes out, you've probably already won. So hopefully we can put some footage of that in. But is it just not something you sort of are excited about too much? Because we were talking about this off camera. You were kind of like one of the early Aussie guys to actually compete internationally, do well. Like, you won the first ones. But is it just like not something you sort of are driven by necessarily?
I think it's just, I don't think competition is a great indicator of who has the best jiu-jitsu. I think it's a very different form of jiu-jitsu where, most of what you're doing in jiu-jitsu is you're trying to be as efficient as you can to slowly cook your opponent and then submit them. Well, that's the way I kind of look at it. Is like I'm trying to be as efficient as I can, use as little energy as I can to efficiently trap and finish an opponent. And a lot of time what I like to do is I like to slow cook them. I like to make them burn energy and basically, destroy them mentally and physically in a sense. And that takes time. Like I feel like anyone in the world that's really athletic and probably on steroids could last 6, 7, 8 minutes with me if I'm a better level than them. But those last 2 minutes is such a huge difference. Once they get tired, and because they'll rely, a lot of people rely so much on athleticism and conditioning and stuff. But then once that depletes, due to their lack of efficiency, you start really seeing who they are. And it's kind of like what Gordon does to a lot of people. And that's why I like watching his matches, because he does a lot of long form matches where he can slowly cook them. And you can see who's the more efficient one in time, where, in jiu-jitsu competition, like a lot of people are just spending so much time on their conditioning and fitness and trying to like outwork their opponent for 6 to 8 minutes or 10 minutes. And it's not as fun for me. It's not as enjoyable. It doesn't look like great jiu-jitsu. It looks more like two athletes trying to break each other. So I don't love the format of competition, and I also don't love the fact that everyone's doing steroids and stuff like that. I've been clean my whole life, and I would wish that everyone was the same. Plus, I'm also 39 years old. Like I turn 40 soon. I don't. I got into jiu-jitsu a lot later than most people, so there's a fair few factors of why I don't really care that much about competition. But the main one would be I just don't think it's a true indicator of who has the best jiu-jitsu.
Would you like to see a reintroduction of no time limit submission only? Because we went through a bit of a period of that being the hot topic of no time limit submission only. We'll see who's the best. But some of these matches went for 2-3 hours.
Yeah, I also don't love submission only too, to be honest with you. I find there's so much beauty in the positioning and transitions. So I don't love no time limits. I mean, I don't love submission only. I do like the points aspect of that, because I think people should take ownership of transitions and like takedowns and passing the guard and sweeping. I really do enjoy that more than submissions, to be honest with you. If I get caught in a submission, it doesn't bother me that much. If I get swept or taken down, that frustrates me. My guard gets passed, that'll piss me off more than anything else. So, but I don't care to watch long, I don't think you could facilitate it, one, because it would be quite boring for most people, and two, logistically, it's just almost impossible to have no time limit submission only matches. But I do like watching the ones that I really like if Gordon's in it or something like that, I really enjoy watching it. Would I want the competition to turn to that? Probably not either. I just don't. I think that for me, it's like I really enjoy the learning process and the problem-solving part of jiu-jitsu, and the competition part just doesn't stimulate me on most levels. I think it's good as a personal challenge to step out there, because you get nervous, you're excited, you're stepping out of your comfort zone. So I think you get a lot out of it, and it's good for your profile and stuff if you're trying to make a living through jiu-jitsu, of course, but it still doesn't mean that much to me. So I don't care to compete as much, and I don't really care to watch competitions as much, unless it's someone I personally know. I feel like it's going to be a really good match. Otherwise, it just doesn't really do that much for me, to be honest.
Yeah. And something you said as well, I think recently on a podcast, was essentially that Craig Jones, he was one of the first guys to sort of start finessing no-gi and making it really technical, which I kind of really agree, because I feel like he's the first guy that I noticed really finessing, putting wedges, grips, things like this. And I was like, whoa, there's actually so much more to this than what I thought, because I started in the gi. Mm-hmm. Are you pretty much exclusively all no-gi now and bored of the gi essentially, or?
Yeah, pretty much. I don't find that much joy in the gi anymore. I mean, I think the gi's painful. It's heavy, it's hot, it's something that's difficult to travel with. I would be very, very happy to see the gi disappear, to be honest with you. I feel like it's a lot easier to slow things down and stall and rely on grip strength and stuff like that, where I feel like no gi, it's a lot harder to do that. You need to be a lot more efficient with your control and your gripping and stuff like that. I know it can be taken both ways. You can see people come in no gi that are slippery and just go like crazy, and you're going to have that, but I still think that no gi is a lot more enjoyable for me and probably more exciting and just more fun to do, especially with the wrestling aspect of it, where, you know, you can do the same thing in the gi, but it's like, it's a lot more stally. So people sort of grab grips and just sort of sit their hips low, pull guard and play around. But I personally think no gi is more enjoyable. In saying that, if I was to like go back and start playing with the gi a lot, I'd probably change my mind and say, no, gi's, you know, I'm used to gi now and gi's more fun and stuff like that. So it's also, you know, a part of it is like what I'm used to doing. I know that if, when I go back to gi now, I feel like I'll suck. If I went against a really good gi player, I feel like I'm getting destroyed. So I'd be like, oh, I hate this, you know. But if I played around with it long enough, I'd probably find a lot more comfort in it. And then I'd be like, oh, no, I love this again. And go to no gi and feel like, oh, it's too sloppy. It's too, you know, uncontrolled. So my opinion is probably going to waver depending on what I'm used to doing at the time.
Let's talk about training methodologies, because Greg Souders is currently getting a lot of attention for saying no one should be drilling, all training should be live. But I feel like you've been saying this for like maybe a decade. You're one of the first guys I remember to saying live training is the way you should basically train, and drilling is a waste of time. Can you talk about how you came about that sort of realization and how your training changed from initially drilling to what you're currently doing?
Yeah, actually, I think Greg contacted me like 11 years ago and asked me a bunch of questions about what I was doing at the time. I think he was with Lloyd Irvin. He was doing a heavy drilling thing, and he kind of saw what I was doing. I was very interested, and then he went down the science route of it and has done really well with that, especially with bringing that to the public, where I kind of got very bored and sick of trying to tell people what to do, where I don't think he's gotten to that stage yet. He's still, you know, enjoying him.
Arguing with people every
Yeah,
week, it
yeah.
seems like, online.
Yeah, I got over that really quickly, and I don't really care what people decide to do these days with them. If they want to learn a technique, I'll teach them a technique. I don't care. I have no ego in that. Everything I do is based on my own experience and opinion. So I kind of like switched from that mentality of this is how you should be training. You're stupid if you don't train this way. To like do whatever the hell you want, and whatever you need from me, I can help you with. It's fine. If you want some task-based games, if you want some concepts, if you want some techniques, whatever you want, it's up to you. You know, your choice with it. My opinion for sure is the same as Greg's, that I don't think you need to drill at all, and I think it's more beneficial not drilling. I think there is a place for showing techniques, but I think there is that you don't really want to be practicing those techniques. You want to kind of look at those techniques as inspiration and ideas, and look at them conceptually and understand the why, and that way you can adapt the how and to do those, rather than looking at the shell of the technique and going, okay, I want to create muscle memory by doing this exact process. It's like me hearing you do say a sentence and saying, I'm going to practice that sentence over and over and over again, instead of understanding why you said that sentence and then changing the way you say it to get the same thing done. So I don't have a problem with teaching a technique or showing a technique. It's just more the way you try and absorb that technique, which is important to me. So, you know, I have a new product I'm working on at the moment, which is going to be a lot about conceptual training, a lot of games to help you develop, but it's also going to show a lot of techniques, which I've stopped doing for a long time. Is that better? Show a lot of techniques, which I've stopped doing for a long time, but I think it's going to help people. But I want them to understand that it's more for inspiration, to see the amount of possibilities in certain areas and go explore those and understand conceptually what I'm doing. Why am I doing this? Why am I doing it at the time? Why shouldn't I do this? Why should I do this? When should I do it? When I shouldn't do it? And understand that, to give them an idea. But what I really want them to do is go and play and explore with the idea of it, not so much like trying to copy the actual technique of it. But at least I can help people. If there are people out there and they're like, well, I do want to drill and I don't care what you say, kid, then there you go. Take the technique and drill and do what you want. But if you want to do what I would call, you know, what I would say is more efficient, then I would say, okay, let's use the games to develop in those areas rather than that. And then like after a while of playing with the games, getting some experience, you can have a look at some inspirational techniques, you know what I mean, for them to go, oh, okay, there's these possibilities and these movements here, so I'm going to go and play with those areas. Because sometimes you can kind of take a little longer to get good at jiu-jitsu because you're unaware of possibilities in a certain area. But if you see someone else do it, it can inspire you. It was kind of like the 4-minute mile, where everyone thought it was impossible to do it, and then one person does it, and then everyone's suddenly doing it. So I think it's very similar to that. You can show different possibilities, and they're like, oh, okay, there's a whole world I can explore here. But I really want to encourage them to explore that area, not to just copy exactly what I'm doing, you know, because what I'm doing is especially when I'm rolling, every time I'm doing something, it's slightly different. Or drastically different. It's never the same thing twice. Even though it may look like it, it's always going to be different, and I'm always calculating a lot of things when I'm doing something. It's, hand pressure, balance, where I'm putting my weight, what kind of mats are we on? Are they slippery? What kind of, gear are they wearing? They're wearing a long sleeve slippery rash guard. They're wearing a tight sleeve rash guard that's grippy. Is the rash guard wet? Is the rash guard dry? All these things are going to change, it's going to change my solution to the problem. And, you've got to understand that, like, if you're trying to take you see me do this certain technique and then you're trying to smash that technique on every single time, you're going to have a lot of problems because you don't realize why I was doing it. But if you understand all the, if you understand all the factors I'm taking in to come up with that solution, you start practicing like that, then you're going to come up with your own solutions and feel like you're free. And that's the one thing I really like about my jiu-jitsu is I've always felt like I can figure anything out. I've never felt like I need to rely on someone, and I don't want to rely on people. I just want to do things myself. And I feel like that brings me a lot of joy and happiness, where I feel like a lot of people feel very stuck in the jiu-jitsu because they're always relying on a coach to tell them what to do rather than having the ability to figure it out themselves.
You were talking about essentially the way you like to train, and both Ben and I, we teach in quite a similar way in terms of just task-based games, very little technique, things like this. What we see even in our comments, some people are at more traditional gyms, and they're kind of stuck in this scenario where their coach is forcing them to drill things like this. How did you sort of pioneer that or implement that when you were the only one that sort of wanted to train this way and people were drill heavy? Would you just come in late, or how did you manage it?
I did. I just come in late. I'd come in late, and if I was there and they were still doing techniques, I'd jump my phone. The thing is, the coach I had at the time, Peter DeBean, he didn't really care that much because I was still winning all the competitions. So he was kind of just like, well, kids win the competitions, whatever, do what the hell you want, I didn't encourage other people to do that because I think it's rude to some extent, but in the same token, you're coming to learn a skill set and you're paying for a service, so I feel like you also have control of what service you get. I mean, if you go to a mechanic and they're like, okay, you got an engine problem, and they're like, oh no, we're going to fix your fucking wheels for you and do it. It's like, hold on a second, I didn't pay for any of that and I don't want that done, I just want the engine done. And I feel like the same thing with jiu-jitsu a lot of time. I want to come here and if I'm paying for you, well, I want to come here for the rolling, but I actually don't want your technique and stuff like that. And I feel like I should have a right to be able to say it. And it's not like I do that, but I feel like that should be standard enough. So what I would do is I would just turn up late all the time. Oh, sorry, I was late. Oh, you finished your technique? Great, let's go straight into the rolling. I'd like that. Or they were doing technique, and I would just sit there and just maybe play and just humor them, do it once or something, or do it differently every single time. So there's different examples of that. But you ever see me, even still, we come here with a pro class and they start with doing some technique stuff, you very rarely see me do it. And everything I want to do is live. I don't even love positional sparring because there's sometimes too many limiting factors that are really not realistic to an actual role. I hate things stick on mount and hold mount. I'm kind of under the impression that if you want to roll and turn and escape and create angles, I want to transition and go with it. And I hate getting stuck where I'm like, I have to do this, where it's a little different to what I would do. Plus, people are very aware of what you're doing when it comes to positional sparring, and sometimes even games. Games can be difficult as well, and people can be aware of what you're doing, so it kind of changes the outcome a little bit just with the awareness. When what I was doing really well was in roles, I would treat the roles like games because they weren't aware of what I was doing, but I would force the area I'd force us into a certain area and develop that way, which is a lot more true than even positional sparring or task-based games. Because they know that, I can kind of do this because, I can get away with it and I can win the game, but I wouldn't do that in real training. Or the other factor is they know what you're trying to do. It's a lot more confined, so it's a lot easier. There's a lot less factors that you have to take in. So when it's like a competition sparring round or something, you can really get honest feedback because they don't know what you're working on. And it's far more, as a coach, what I would be doing is I'd be micromanaging people a lot more, and I'd be coming to speak to you individually and telling what I want you to work on rather than telling you as a group. Because if I tell you both, okay, you guys are going to play this, I want you to work on this, straight away he's listening to that he's going to do this, okay, so I'm just going to defend that. Where I don't want him to know that what you're trying to do and what you're trying to work on, nor do I want you to know what I want him to start working on. You're going to figure that out really quickly anyway, but at least it gives you a lot more of an honest answer. It's like trying to play poker, telling someone what hand they have, you know what I mean? Or at least one of their cards. It's going to make it a lot more unrealistic.
If you were to be in charge, you're a head coach and you've got a class of beginners, how would you structure like an hour's training session to make them as good as you possibly could?
Well, I'd start with a warm-up that helps them develop a certain skill. It might be grip fighting or something like that, and play around. So I'd get them to do like three-minute warm-ups. One might be like negating the other one from getting grips. The other one might be constantly having grips, where one person's just constantly making grip, the other one's just stripping them, and you just got to go with it and not be like too, not holding on positions too tight, but just getting more malleable in a sense of like going from one thing to another thing to another thing to another thing. And then I'd have 3 games like that, and then we get straight into a certain area. And I talk about the area, we're going to play with this area today, and what your goal is your goal is to go from A to B, and you got to watch out for C, okay? And your opponent's going to do that. So we would do that for maybe 5-10 minutes, bring them in, they can ask some questions, and then they go straight back out. And we would advance that. We go from that step to the next step of that. It's like, so maybe it was like starting with a single leg. Okay, you start on your knees with a single leg, and your goal is just to hold onto the leg, and the other opponent's goal is just to escape. So you don't need to worry about taking them down. They don't need to worry about getting taken down. Their goal is just to be able to escape. So they're getting a little bit more experience in trying to figure out how to escape that position and not needing to worry about getting picked up and slammed on their head or something like that. And then the next one might be, okay, now you can take them down, and they can't escape. They've just got to defend, or they can escape and defend. And now you got to go from this position, and you got to either go to the back or to a double leg or take them down. So I make it a little bit more advanced, and I just kind of grow on that until we get to the end position of where I want them to be. And it's kind of similar. I do the same thing if someone's like, oh, I like this technique here. It's like, well, let's create like 5 different compartmentalized games that are the sections of that technique, or those steps, and try and get them to learn how to go from one step to another in a problem-solving manner, rather than in just a repetitive, theatrical manner, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And I love the fact that the thing you mentioned earlier about when you coach your students, you mention basically privately, I want you to work on this, and so that way, the other person doesn't know what they're working on.
Yeah.
Is that what can you give us an example of when you're rolling, what kind of games you're playing? Is it can you give us like a concrete example, of what?
Yeah. So, I mean, it really depends on who I'm going against. I'm always trying to pick like every single guy, and most guys have like a very strong area and weak areas. And I don't want to play in their weak areas. Like, yeah, that'd be good because I'd have a better chance of beating them in training. But what's the point of beating them in training? You want to be learning in training. So what I do is I'll find out very quickly where they're really strong and try and figure their strongest part out. You know what I mean? There's a couple guys here that have got really strong areas, and every time you see me roll with them, like they'll be specific. Like, I'll roll with this guy, and all I'm doing is stand up. I'm rolling with this guy, all I'm doing is passing. I'm rolling with this guy, all I'm doing is playing guard. And it might be a certain guard because I know that they're really good at that, and that's where I'm going to get the most from this. And that's me being selfish with my training, rather than giving them where I may be strongest. I'm trying to take from them what I can, as much as I can get from them. And that's what a lot of people don't understand when it comes to training, is what they do is they treat it like they're trying to win every single time. And it's like they're trying to just use their A game to beat people and stuff like that, where you should be trying to make it harder on yourself. I mean, obviously, depending on what level you are, as you come in, you're a beginner. I mean, everyone's going to be pretty difficult. But as you get better and better, it's really important to try and take the best of everybody. If this guy's, great at takedowns, I'm going to try and take as much of his takedowns I can. This guy's really good at half guard. I'm playing this half guard all the time. That's what I try and do. And I find it very fun to develop that way and to figure people out. And if I can figure someone's strongest part of their game out, then essentially, I'm getting the most out of that. And I would, if it went to a competition or us competing in training, I'm going to have a better chance anyway.
Our listeners may or may not know this, but you got your black belt in about 4 years. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Do you think that's a reflection of the way you've approached training, or do you think you just trained so much that...
Oh, no, it's a reflection. I didn't train that much. I was training 5 times a week probably. I was also playing football, training football twice a week and playing on Saturdays. I was also working a full-time job, so I was oscillating in between all 3 of those. And I didn't train that much even when I got there. Like, I would skip the technique stuff. I go into the positional sparring. I'd do rounds. I would probably do 1 round, sit out 1 round, do another round, sit out a round, do another round. And I'd be very thoughtful of all of the rounds. I'd reflect on them a lot. I didn't like to lose. I didn't like to feel like I didn't have an answer for something or a solution for something. So I would always try and go back and reflect on any mistake I can remember and solve that equation, so to speak. So I became very good at solving problems. I became very good at diagnosing my own problems and teaching myself, and I just found very little interest in learning how to do it from others. I was like, no, this is the fun part for me, is figuring these things out myself. And the more you learn to figure things out yourself, the faster and the better you become at figuring things out. So you essentially become a faster learner, to the point where you can be learning during live rolls. Instead of having to go back or study tape and think about it, you can be rolling with them and come up with solutions in the moment or in competition, because it just becomes second nature to you, and you just become so much better a problem solver and so much quicker a problem solver.
What you're saying makes so much sense, but it's quite the opposite of the way most people train, particularly beginners, white to blue belt, even purple belt. Is the way they'll train is they'll have a roll, they'll encounter a problem, and the first thing they do is ask their coach.
Yeah.
And the coach will give them their opinion or a technique to drill. They'll say, you need to get better at your single leg takedowns. Here, drill this 10 times.
Yeah.
And that's the way they think they get better, right?
Yeah, well, they're relying on a coach, just like doing mathematics and relying on the back of the textbook. You're not going to get better. You're just going to, every single time, okay, what's the answer to this? Thank you. Oh, I got another problem. What's the answer to this? Thank you. You want to be able to learn to figure out your own problems and solve your own problems. And when you can do that, jiu-jitsu becomes so much more fun and enjoyable. And you'll be far less likely to want any kind of advice. I really don't like advice. I don't like people teaching me techniques.
Don't tell me shit.
Yeah, I said it's not because I don't think what they have is valid, because usually it is. It's just you're robbing me of the ability to figure it out myself, and that's the joy that I find in jiu-jitsu, and that's the part that really that you get the most out of when it comes to learning jiu-jitsu and becoming better, is like you're having the ability to actually solve your own problems. And I think in life as well. If you're stuck in any situation where you have to get other people to help you, it's a really debilitating feeling and position, where if you know that no matter what position in life you're in, I can figure this out, it's really empowering, and you feel so much happier and better about yourself. And the same thing with jiu-jitsu, where I feel like no matter what it is, I will eventually figure it out. And it may be a really tough position, but if I play with it long enough, I'll get it. And I feel like it's the same with everybody else. Anytime I've had somebody like, kid, I can't do this, it just doesn't work. It's just like keep playing with it, keep playing with it, and then suddenly like, oh, it works. Okay, this is great now. I figured this out, and I figured this out, and this is what I was doing wrong. And they're finding out themselves. And I think that as a coach, it's really important to not helicopter parent your students as well as it is, an adult not helicopter parent your kids, because you're robbing them of the ability to figure things out themselves. So what I try and do is, if I see they've got a problem, they ask me, and I might have the solution, but I've got to try and create a game or an exercise for them to practice that's going to have them come up with a solution that I so badly want to teach them. And if I can do that, it really sticks to them, rather than me just telling them something. If I tell them something, it'll probably go through one ear and out the other. But if they figure it out themselves, it's like a light bulb moment, and it's just so much more powerful. So, as a coach, it's very hard to sit back and sit on all that information, because your ego wants to show everyone how much knowledge you have and how much you know. But it's far greater for you to see them and try and guide them in a way that they're going to discover it themselves, and it's going to empower them. But it's also going to make you slightly obsolete in that section as well. But that's what you should be striving for as a coach, is to make your students better than you, and make your students not need to rely on you. As much as that financially might not be the best thing, I think, it's the most rewarding thing when it comes to actually getting them to learn.
Yeah, I'd love to see that culture shift as well, just in general. I think it is happening, but you do see people that sort of want that answer and want the back of the textbook. So yeah, I do hope that does change. Something else that I feel like you don't get enough credit for is you were the original jiu-jitsu marketing guy. Like, in terms of marketing jiu-jitsu, as in not taking it too seriously. I don't think most people know that that you kind of started that, essentially. What was sort of the background of that? Like, how did you have the confidence to fuck around so much with before matches and just make a joke out of it, essentially?
I mean, I think I just didn't take it that seriously. I think I'm one of the rare people that looks at jiu-jitsu objectively, and this is the most ridiculous thing we're doing. Okay, we're just messing around wrestling and playing around on the ground. It looks kind of stupid. And it's a very, especially at the time, it's a very small number of people doing it. And compared to most things right now, it's still a very small number of people doing it. So to me, if someone comes in, they're like, I'm the best in jiu-jitsu in the world. I was like, for me, it's like, awesome. I don't really care that much. You know what I mean? I'd be far more impressed if they were the best, at something else that's a far more difficult endeavor, or at least their competition is far more dense than what it is jiu-jitsu. And it doesn't matter. I'm not saying I don't respect people that are good at jiu-jitsu, because getting good at jiu-jitsu is hard, especially getting world class. I appreciate it, but it doesn't do that much for me. So for me, it was kind of like, I always just like to have fun. I like to joke around. I like to mess around. So it was just me being more myself than anything. And I think that was what resonated with a lot of people, where everyone else was trying to get in there and just be like, no, I'm a coach and this is what you do and stuff. Like, it's just far better to have fun and make a fun culture and take the piss out of people. And that's what I enjoyed. So I never really thought about like, oh, this is going to be a marketing tactic. It was just more, this is myself. And people resonated with that because they felt like they knew who I was. You know what I mean? Rather than when you see everyone else, they kind of look like a cardboard sort of copy of something, and they're kind of like very stiff and rigid, and it doesn't feel personal. It just feels like you listen to someone. When I think when people were watching, me and Craig were doing products and stuff, we were making fun of each other and joking around, and people really enjoy that. And it's not. I'm not always in that mood either. It's not like I'm always like a joking guy. Sometimes I'm not. Sometimes very serious. Sometimes people would meet me and go, "Oh man, you're really calm and relaxed." And sometimes I am in a bubbly mood, and I kind of just go with it. So it's not so much a tactic, but I feel like I do understand comedy on a much better level than what most people do as well now, especially with making films and doing skits. And we also, when we were younger, me and my brother, he's a big director now, Scott Dale, we were always filming stuff with my other brother Adam as well and messing around. And so we kind of got a good feeling for doing comedy stuff and just having fun. So it was very easy to bring that into the instructionals. And I did start to notice why, how the instructionals would do a lot better, or ads would do a lot better if you added humor to it, or if I'm just seeing other people being funny. So it wasn't so much like a tactic. It was more like the same thing with training. It wasn't a tactic for me to train like this. It was just I found techniques really boring and a very stimulating way to learn. So I was just like, I don't want to do that. I just want to train. And I was just through doing the training, I'm like, wow, why am I getting so much better than most guys? And I'm training half the time as most people and getting better 5 times quicker than them. It didn't make any sense. And then I started looking at some of the literature and I was like, okay, well, now that makes a lot of sense. But the jiu-jitsu ads was kind of the same. It was like, this is just who I am. I'm having fun. And that's why I like to do it. And they seem to do a lot better. I seem to, my profile grew a lot. But it also, like, I stepped out of the sport a dozen times and didn't really take competition that seriously after 2014. 2014, I would train properly for a world championship. And then after that, I did like maybe 2 or 3 of them. And it was more like I'm traveling Europe and having fun. And like, oh, shit, I might as well enter that competition. I'm going to be here at that time. So I'd enter it. Some of those world championships, I hadn't trained in 3 or 4 weeks before that. And I'd still do it, I just knew that I'm like, it was going to be hard. There was one, I had a knee reconstruction, I had an ACL reconstruction, and it was supposed to take 18 months before you were allowed to compete. And I was 6.5 months later, and I was doing the world championships. And I did really well, actually. I could have almost won. I lost right at the end, lost to Mateus Diniz right at the end. And if I had won that, the next match would have been easy. So, like, yeah, it's just...
Let's talk about your venture into filmmaking. So you've moved to LA now. You've just finished your first film. We're waiting on it to be released. Tell us about that.
Well, I moved to LA, 2014, I moved away and I wanted to start doing acting, and I was, I got lucky. I got a good role in a movie called Iron Sky, The Coming Race. The movie didn't do that well, so it didn't really boost my profile or anything, and I had a couple other small roles and a lot of other movies, but none of them really took off. And that's the unfortunate part about, acting. You can be, and I'm not saying I am, but like, you can be a great actor and just none of your movies you're in do well. Or you don't get casted, and then you can be a very bad actor and get casted in the right movie or the right series, and suddenly you're the world's biggest thing. So much of it's based on luck, and I was trying to do the acting thing for a while. It just wasn't really paying off. And then COVID hit, and then the climate changed, and it went more to like minorities and people with different sexual preferences or sexual identities, and the DEI movement came in massively, and that kind of killed me being like a straight white male. In Hollywood, I was suddenly like, my auditions went from, let's say, 10 a month to 1 a month. So I thought, it is what it is. I'm not going to be able to make it if I wait, for this audition to get this one thing that's going to blow up. It's not going to happen. If I want to make this, I'm going to have to do it myself, which has kind of been the case for most things in my life anyway. It's like, if I want to do something, I'm just going to have to do it myself. And so I started writing. I spent 3 years writing, and I had a lot of help. My partner at the time, Carolina, my business partner now, Becca, would help me read my scripts, and a bunch of other people, but they really read my script, especially Becca. I'd send my stuff to her all the time, and she'd read my scripts, give me feedback. Probably did it like 60 times, which is a lot of work. And she was the one that we actually ended up making the movie with, which was great. I also met a guy, Sheldon Turner, who is one of the best writers on the planet, and he's been a mentor for me, and I help him with jiu-jitsu. He helps me, so that was so good to have someone like that. And then Becca came to me and she said, "Hey, Kit, let's make something together." And I said, "Hell no," because I thought, Becca's great, but she's got 2 kids, she's got a family. I have so much time to do this, and I just don't think that she will. So that was the only reason I said that. Then I thought about it, and I said, actually, you know what? It's not a bad idea. Let's do. And the original idea was to do a net series. What is it called? Like an online series about jiu-jitsu comedy, workplace jiu-jitsu. And I said, well, why don't we do a pilot for a series? And then we thought, yeah, let's do that. So I wrote a pilot, and that was great, and we really liked it. But then I thought, and we both thought, fuck, it's going to be hard to sell a pilot. And even if we do, they're going to take it out of our hands, give us a little bit of money and do it themselves. And we really wanted to make something together and make something for ourselves. So I said, why not make it a movie? And I think Beck was a little reluctant at first and then come around to it. And Sheldon, my mentor, was like, don't do that. And then we did it anyway. And then he read it and she read it. Well, she didn't read it. She worked with me on the damn thing. And we really liked it and Sheldon loved it. And then we had great feedback. So, and then a couple months later, we got funding for it. Ultra low budget. We got funding for it. We got, I think it was 48 crew members, 50 or 65 cast members. We shot it in LA in 16 days. The whole process was amazing. It was so good to, we worked together really well. She's one of the hardest workers. So like, it was great. And we just smashed it out and we had such good crew. There was a lot of people that came that were well above the money that we had, but believed in the project. And the cast was just simply phenomenal, and we're really happy with what we have right now. We have a really funny movie that has a lot of heart and some good action. So we're really excited. We've probably got another month of editing this, and then we'll send it across to sound design for 6 weeks, and then send it across to a composer for 6 weeks, colorist, and then we're going to have something. And I'm really sure this is going to be something really good. And not just good for the community and jiu-jitsu community, because I feel like jiu-jitsu really deserve to have a fun movie about jiu-jitsu that's represented by someone that's actually been in there and done that. But it's also something that everyone can enjoy, because the conceptual story is something that everyone can relate to. So we're really, really excited and really pumped to show everyone about this. And this is something that we really want to do. We have a sequel that we're 85 pages into writing as well that's funnier than the first, and we're just working out some things. So I think once this first one comes out, we're going to have a lot of leverage, get the second one. And our goal is for me and Becca to be able to make one movie a year, and just build up slowly. And I think that's the big goal for us at the moment, is as filmmakers, actors, directors, executive producers, and writers, and do everything.
Can you
own stuff?
Can you give us a very short synopsis of what this movie is about?
It's loosely based on mine and Becca's lives. So the characters I've used are very similar to both of us. And it's about Rick Dale, who's me, who runs the Jiu-Jitsu Academy just to keep his head afloat so that he can pursue his new passion of writing. And he wants to be a romance novelist. So he's pursuing that. Only thing is, he's not any good. He doesn't realize that. And then Tay comes in, and she's a proper competitor, and she wants to train, and he's pushing her away and doing everything he can to get her away from the world that he's so badly running away from. And then it's just a fun journey of realizing that she can actually help him in what he needs to do, and he can help her, and they build this connection. It goes back and forth, breaking it. We have other characters coming in that you'll know from the jiu-jitsu world, other actors you'll know from the jiu-jitsu world, very famous ones, and it's just a lot of fun, and ends up in a really nice sentimental moment of the character's growth, and something that even I'd never cry, but it even brings me to tears, like doing that. Even when I was writing the ending of it, I remember having tears in my eyes and stuff like that, and watching it. And we've had the same reaction from people watching it, which is great. So I think we're really excited, and that's kind of without giving you too much information, that's the gist of it.
Wow.
Do you have plans for distribution, like how people can?
We're going to wait to see what we have at the end. And if we feel like this is something we want to take to film, what are they called? Not like,
not Sundance, like those films.
Yeah, stuff like that. Sorry, festivals. The word just fucking escaped me as usual. Festivals, or whether we just go straight to a distributor and try and get it. But I am very confident we'll probably end up on something like Netflix, and I think we'll do really well on that. I think it's going to be something the jiu-jitsu community will really push and promote and really enjoy.
And as a resident film expert for us, what, in your opinion, was the golden age of cinema in the 90s with Arnie and Terminator, or early 2000s with Jackie Chan, Rush Hour, things like this?
I mean, they're both good. I think Rush Hour was hilarious. I definitely am an 80s, 90s fan for sure.
What's your top three?
Oh my, I wouldn't be able to tell you top 3. Honestly, like I could tell you top 100. I just go through your movies like Terminator 1, Terminator 2, Predator, The Exorcist. It's much easier to give me a genre and I'll be like, these are the,
top 3 Arnie movies. Let's go with that.
Terminator 1, Terminator 2, Predator.
Okay.
What else is I mean, it's been in a lot of it.
There's been a lot.
I think those 3
Twins?
are my favorite.
Twins was great. No?
I don't think I've watched it, to be honest with
What?
you. I don't think I find it that interesting to watch.
What?
But I know he made the most money out of that movie.
That one movie where it was pregnant, I forgot what that was also good.
I
Yeah.
haven't seen that one.
That's so good. I love the plots in like, it's like these guys must have had like so much money. Like, hey, let's just make a movie where Arnie's pregnant. This is a great,
I don't
idea.
think they did very well with those. I think people like Arnie as the hero. They don't like him as like the comedic relief and a lot of that kind of stuff. Like same as Freeze in Batman.
Oh, I love that movie.
Freeze.
I love that.
There's a storm coming.
That's one of my favorite
Or
bad
Commando,
movies.
but Commando's ridiculous.
Oh,
That's funny.
these are my top 3.
Commando. But yeah, like I love like James Cameron movies. I really enjoyed like stuff like Titanic and stuff. I like the movies before everything was politically charged. I really don't like watching a movie that like people are trying to teach me what to do politically or something like that. I do like a movie that has kind of meaning to it and it makes me feel like I want to be a better person or something in a way. But I hate when it's really on the nose. And a lot of these movies, and I would say they're what you would call woke movies that have come out lately, are just not, they don't interest me. And as soon as I feel like I'm being preached to, I just want to turn it off. And I feel like we've gone through a lot of that in the last couple of years where people are making movies based on some theme or some message they want to get across, instead of having a movie that's based on a really good story that also has a theme to it. But I think that there was a really good writing coach that said it, and I forget his name, but he was saying that like, and this is what I do, is I try and write the story and then find what is the meaning in this story, what is the theme through the story, instead of finding the theme and then writing a story about it. So let's say you like a theme is like, hey, I don't want to see any more racism, so I'm going to write a story about it, and that just seems so on the nose, it's so obvious, rather than writing a really good story that has like an underlying thing about racism and make you feel like that that's a bad thing. Then it's so much stronger, and you feel that you want to be tricked into it, not be beaten over the head by it, if that makes sense.
Kind of like show, don't tell.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Amazing. Ben, do you have any closing questions? I think we're being kicked out because the boys need to set up.
But I've got one more question. You've taken this CJI trials opportunity. Do we expect to see you on any more super fights or tournaments, or it depends what?
Yeah,
Is
sure,
there anything
for sure.
that would excite you to compete after this event?
Yeah, and it'll just be like mainly super fights and stuff. As I'm a lot older now and stuff like that, it's a lot harder to do these long form elimination, and this kind of tournament is not really set up for me at all. Like, this is probably going to be one of the hardest ones. Not only is it open weight, it's a bunch of young kids that are really good. Most of them are juiced up. I got to win a 16-man fucking.
Out there. If you're not juiced up in the comment next to you, claim your innocence. Otherwise, we're assuming you're on the juice.
So I'm going to be the oldest, most likely in there, and one of the smallest in there. And I have to win a 16-man just to get into the 6-man tournament, which is going to be full of fresh beasts that are all massive. They're all still juiced up, and they're all very good. So it's going to be hard in a submission-only kind of format in the last one, which is definitely not my type of format. So if I'm able to win this, I mean, that's going to be one of the biggest feats I've ever done. And it's not that I haven't beaten better people, because I have beaten better people that are in here. It's just the challenge along the way, and the way it is stylistically is going to be very difficult for me. But that's why I also am excited, because I don't feel like I have any pressure. So anything I do in here is going to be actually a win for me. So I'm pumped about it. And going forward from here, it really depends. It's just like, with the filmmaking, I think once this movie comes out, things are going to really cook with the filmmaking stuff, and I might not have as much time, but I would love to be at the stage where I can jump in there and not feel pressure and just play around and mess around and obviously be fit and have good training. But it's a lot harder in LA right now because we just don't have that much training compared to like here in Melbourne at Lachlan's. You've got so many good people.
Surely there's people in LA you can find. Go on.
It's all separated. It's really far. Like you might be able to go to Homelo's, and then you got to go over 2 hours this way or 2 hours that way to put together a bunch of people. Right now, it's kind of like where I'm in Hollywood, I'm trying to get people. I'm like, oh, can you train night? Oh, no, I can't train night. Can you train night? Can't train night. So then I'm not even bothering going because I'm like, I'm not going to be stimulated in any way, shape, or form. I'm going to be rolling with someone that like I could have rolled with the next door neighbor and got the same amount of. Sorry.
We need more jiu-jitsu bums in Hollywood.
Yes,
sure.
everyone left. Everyone went to, like, San Diego's great and Texas is great right now, but LA definitely the level dropped and scattered a lot.
All right, we're getting kicked out. Kit, thank you so much for your time. Guys, thanks for listening. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe. Peace.